In this video, I am going to show you how to find the mean and median using a free online technology called GeoGebra. We will be using the data on page 154 in the textbook, which shows some exam test scores. And I will be following the directions on your pink handout. They're about halfway down where it says mean, median, and standard deviation GeoGebra. You're welcome to refer to these directions at any time to repeat this process. So to start off, I am going to go to a tab on my computer and type in GeoGebra Classic. There are two versions of GeoGebra, and I am told by the teachers at PCC who teach statistics and Math 105 that they prefer GeoGebra Classic. So we will always go to, it's the sort of the most recent version before the one that has been updated. People prefer the older version. So it's important to type in GeoGebra Classic. And then once I am there, I am going to go over to the three lines in the corner over here. My students said they call this the hamburger icon. I think it's also called the menu icon. I will click on those three lines and then choose the word perspectives and spreadsheet. And there are other ways to get to this place, but this is always going to work to go to the menu. I'm just going to do that again, menu, then perspectives, and then spreadsheet. And that will give you a spreadsheet that looks a little bit like what we've been using in Google Sheets. And that is where I will put the data. Now I can either type the data in as I see it on page 154, or if you have access to a spreadsheet of the data, you can also copy and paste it. And I'm just going to show you how to do that, although you might not choose to do that right now. In our week 7 folder, I have a link to the data for this lesson. I always have it set so that we have to make a copy. That way you can't, whatever changes you make won't impact anybody else. And you can see the exam data scores right there. So I'm going to highlight them, and then I'm going to copy them and go back to the spreadsheet and paste them in. So if you happen to be already logged into your My PCC account and you can go to D2L, you're welcome to try that. This is a really handy thing to do in general with data rather than entering it by hand if we have it available electronically to copy and paste it. And if you're on a MacBook, it works a little different, the copying and pasting. I have those directions right here in our slide. At the bottom, it says to copy and paste data from a spreadsheet using a MacBook, go to the Edit menu and select the word copy and then the word paste. We can't use the commands on our keyboard. For some reason, that doesn't work. We actually have to go to the Edit menu in the upper left-hand corner and then select the actual word copy and the word paste. But it is possible also on a MacBook to do that. Okay, so either we copy and paste it or we enter the data by hand, and please feel free to pause the video right now as you get that data into the cells in the GeoGebra spreadsheet. And then once you've got that data in there, we need to highlight the data that we are interested in. And you can do that just by clicking on the very top letter A. It will highlight the whole column. Notice it doesn't highlight the blank spots. So it doesn't matter that you've highlighted the whole column. It's only going to pay attention to where you entered the data. This is a really good thing to do because if you highlight it by hand, we sometimes miss like the last two, especially if there's a lot of data. And so then we're not asking the computer to look at all of the data. In order to be sure that you have all the data you want, I recommend clicking on the letter above the column or the number next to the row where your data is. In this case, we put it into a column. Now, I know there's only one column of data here, and so sometimes we forget to select it because as human beings, if it's not selected, we can still see, well, it feels fairly straightforward. We want to analyze the data that we see there. But you always have to remember that a computer can't think like a human. They're actually not nearly as intelligent as us, despite all the advances. So unless you tell the computer where you want it to look, it doesn't know. And the way you tell it is by clicking on that A, so that you get the data. That's probably the most common step people miss. Then we're going to click on the little bar graph icon right above that letter A, and we are doing one variable analysis. And when we click on that, we see a histogram comes up, and there's a lot of options here. We're not going to take advantage of all these options yet, but if you go on to statistics and 105, I hope you'll use more. You can make the data into a stem and leaf plot, which is something we did in the beginning of the term. It turns out technology can do that for us. You can make this thing called a box plot. You can make a bar chart. There's all kinds of things that we can do. But for our purposes right now, we are not looking at those. What we want to do is click up here in the upper right-hand corner where you see this weird looking E. That is, and if you hover over it, it says show statistics. That E stands for summary, or in the summary statistics that we want about this data. So if I click on that, you can see now that it's giving me a lot of information about the data. It tells me the mean is 77. It tells me that the median is 80. It also gives me the minimum value of 54, the maximum value of 96. And that 13 up at the top tells me how many pieces of data I've entered. And that is actually really important. Sorry, I did something very strange. Well, that gives me an opportunity to just do the whole thing again. I'm going to copy my data. I'm going to put it into my spreadsheet. I'm going to highlight it, click on the bar graph, and then click on summary statistics. That 13 up there tells me there's 13 pieces of data. That's an important thing to check to make sure that we actually entered all of the data that we intended to enter. And there's some other information here that we'll look at in our future classes. So this box right here has the summary statistics, a lot of statistical information that we will learn to analyze. So feel free to watch this video again at home. And right now you're going to get a chance in your groups to try this again with a different set of data. And if you have the spreadsheet open, it's on the second tab at the bottom. Notice there's two tabs. So if I click on the other tab, I have the scores and study time, which is what we will be looking at in the group portion. And you'll get a chance on GeoGebra to try to follow those directions again. Remember that you're not, the goal is not to memorize directions for technology. There's so many different technologies. What we want to know is what is possible and how to find the steps that we need. And we could Google how to do it, but I have it for you here on the pink handout. So these steps right here are going to tell you exactly what I just showed you. So that's what we should try for the group portion. Good luck.